Let's call this regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Roll call. Mr. Grandia.
Keisha Johnner.
Here.
Mark Ramey.
Here.
Steve McCombs. Here.
Is there a motion on this morning's agenda?
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
Second. McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Communications, Jake?
None for me.
Board?
I have none.
None.
All right, none for me. Public comments. This portion of the agenda, the public can speak on items not listed on today's agenda. Board can't act on those items. They could be topics for future meetings. Are there any public comments on items not listed on this morning's agenda? Nothing online and nothing in-house. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Make motion to approve today's consent agenda.
Second.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
All right, very good. On to business. First item is a Iowa Department of Administrative Services lease agreement. Who is on that one? Okay,
And board, I put the agenda request in for you all to discuss. So I'm here for questions if you have questions.
so you're not going to take any bullets then?
Oh, I'll take as many bullets as necessary. So
All right, all right. So this is to move Department of Corrections, the parole office to public health?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, this all started, I think they approached maybe our county attorney, Mr. Jerry Harmon, and then they got in contact with me. We looked at space availability. Obviously with relieving Sixth Street from the county rolls, our only real office space available is at public health. We reached out to their leasing arm and then they sent a lease and that's pretty much where it is.
so the $18,000 per year rate, Chris, does that come from them or us?
That is a rate that I had threw at them, which I thought was a high rate compared to what we had been leasing space for, but rents have gone up. And then they jumped on that. So again, that's a discussion point for the board.
And the rates computed based on the square footage they'll
Square
need?
footage at $18 per square foot. Yep.
Okay, okay, very good. Board?
My question is, what are the concerns for the staff safety?
So Kim, do you want me to speak to it since Lindsay, you guys can talk. We've had conversations about it, so.
No, my staff does have concerns about safety. Hear me?
Sorta.
Sort
I don't
of,
think
sorry.
it's all-
Can you hear me now?
No.
No?
There, Kim, you might have to come up to the mic up here. I don't know, can anybody, can we hear it? Nah, we're back to gotta swallow it again.
Can they hear us online fine?
I'm gonna bet they can't. Can they? It's just here? Okay.
My staff does have concerns about safety. They actually had talked with me even before this came up about being concerned that they come and go during dark hours and, they drive our county vehicles to different places and they come back at after dark, 7 o'clock at night or whatever. And so they have already talked to me about that. And actually, I submitted some minutes to the safety committee about that for safety. So bringing this population to the building, I haven't talked with them all about that, but they were concerned before. And so bringing this particular population to the building, it makes me concerned for them because it's out on the edge of town. And this is the same population of folks that come and go from that building that would come to the courthouse that you have a security officer at the courthouse for. So I'm not sure that I can understand why I think I don't think it's a good fit, but and I did talk to the Board of Health about it and the Board of Health didn't think it was a good fit either. But
So can I, Kim,
Sure.
just, and Chris, I don't know who's gonna answer this question, but is it, in some of our instances dealing with different offices, there are mandates for space and things that we have to provide. Does this fall under one of those, or is this just a request because maybe we'll get some rental income or
I have no
Or they-
idea.
Or they have
I-
a need for space, or what's driving this?
My
request?
understanding is that Keisha brought this to
Actually,
you, no?
no, so it,
So-
when it filtered from Jared gave my contact information, they reached out to me. That's how this all prevented.
Okay,
Okay,
And to answer
But-
that question, there is no mandate for us to provide space for them. We have one mandate to provide state space, outside of courts.
mhm,
And that would be Child Protective Services of DHS, which we house here at 3014.
right. Jason, on the security issue that Kim raised, do you have any knowledge of this or any comments you'd like to make on this?
Well, it's hard for me to comment on their safety or their concerns on it and different things. I think one of the issues that a lot of times Department of Corrections looks for is just space in general. So whether it be the office, when they have people coming in, checking in, different things, I think the state's probably constantly always looking for, hey, where's a better office space? Where's the best deal? That side of it. So I don't know how this all came about, but you do have people coming to check in. I'm assuming it's probation parole, is that right? And that's the first I'm hearing of it also and too. But if it's something where they're coming to check in with probation or parole officers or whatever, that's obviously, there are people that will be coming to check in there that might have criminal records. So as for, I think Lisa wanted to comment too on it or whatever, but obviously we're going to respond wherever somebody needs us to. So I really can't say
Okay.
for their safety.
Okay.
On it.
No, it's fair. Thank you.
But these actual people don't have access to the building. It would be just the people that are populating the office space that are state employees, correct?
I'm kind of being caught off guard here, but I'm assuming it's probation and parole officers. So when there's a certain individual that's convicted of a crime, they're required to come and check in, with their probation parole officers, and a lot of times they'll do that in an office setting. So if that's the case, if somebody's on parole or probation and it's required that they come in and check in, let's say once a month, they may come in and do that. If that's what this building, or if that's what they're looking for DOC space, you'll have people that have criminal records coming in and out of the building. So I just don't know, I'm just hearing of it now, so I don't know exactly what they're looking for. If it's all administrative and it's not probation parole or something, it may be a different story, but I think you really need to dig into it, or I can help look into it to see what is the use going to be used for.
Oh, yeah, that would be
That-
very
I
helpful.
think that's the key of what nobody, or I don't know. I think that's the question that has to be asked for DOC. What are you going to be using it for? Who are the people that are going to be occupying the office? What extent do you need public access to be coming into the office?
Mhm.
Along those lines, so.
Right. Okay. No,
Yeah.
that's, Jason, thank you. Lisa?
I just want to say that I do have major safety concerns. Whenever I have moved, sorry, I'm too short for this. Whenever I have moved, safety for me has been a huge issue, Steve. And I've always had at least 2 exits out of everywhere that I'm at, because you know what I deal with. I deal with happy people, and I deal with some sensitive stuff with employees. And although I'm willing to be a team player, public health, the space that they are looking at is the space where I'm at, which, like I said, I am a team player. But right now I have 3 exits to get out of my space. Unless I really move a whole lot of people, unless you move a lot of people again, you're not giving me the outs that I feel that I need. That's just coming,
Has this space been physically identified that,
it's
that-
from the space, I'm sorry, this mic
Maybe
is,
back just to hear up.
the space identified is the space where Mark currently is, I am, and Keisha. So it would
Okay.
take away the secure door here, and an exit to the hallway for me and my staff. So the other question I'm going to ask is that I did read through the lease, and the lease, Friday I happened to be talking to our insurance agent at McKay about township information, because I am the Knoxville Township Clerk. We were talking about other information, and I said, hey, why I have you on the phone? let me read you part of this lease agreement and let me hear your thoughts. And I have her thoughts. And she said, they are not doing business for Marion County. And the way the lease is written, they will not insure that. If you read the agreement, I have the language that needs to be in there. She said that I'll share it with you. There is no way that they would insure that part of the building for state of Iowa to be there, and that's what's in the lease agreement. So if we reduce staff, I'm not going to pay you $1,800. And if we increase our staff, guess what? I get to take adjacent offices. The only adjacent offices are in the main hallway of the public health building. I have a problem with that. I think you are ridiculous if you sign this lease agreement the way
I
it
think
is.
this is probably a standard lease agreement from the state, and I have a little issues with it too. It's kind of confusing in section 5 where it says that they need a written approval of the landlord to assign or sublet the lease. But in the next
Exactly.
but in the next paragraph, it says that they have the right to put any other state agency. So
Exactly.
It's kind of confusing, the lease, to me.
Is there any language about additional insured, Lisa?
Not in this agreement.
Well, I was going to say you probably.
I have the email from Tanya from
You'd have
McKay
to-
Insurance, and I would be happy to submit it
If
to
you move
you.
forward with it, you would have to arrange something like that with the state of Iowa to cover it, which would be problematic at best. But it sounds like you, Jared, did you review the lease?
Yeah, I've had a chance to review. I did not speak to specific questions about that.
It doesn't sound like we're ready to do much of anything with this. We got a lot of homework to do yet before we,
It does look like the similar, and Jared, you may be able to review. It does look like it's the same lease agreement. It's just from 6th Street.
it's a boilerplate.
So
But
So
why would you sign something and let your tenant decide what you're going to pay based off of their occupancy? No other landlord, I believe, in this whole state of Iowa would ever sign a contract like that. That's it.
I'm just saying we did do it before. That's what makes, that's what.
thanks, Lisa. All right. Board discussion. It sounds like we've got a lot of open questions before we even do anything with this.
I would like to find out exactly what that use is going to be. From the, if it's just for administrative purposes, that's a little different, but I can understand some of these concerns, but I would like to find out what that use is going to actually be for. And I would also like to tweak the agreement, the lease agreement.
Yeah, I'll just put my 2 cents worth in. The building's not set up for this. So Jason would have to do a security review, and if it is to also take people that have records, if it's just administrative, that's one thing. We'd have to know that first, but the building it's a maze. So it's not set up to do this kind of work from a security standpoint. And then secondarily, the insurance side, you're opening yourself up to massive amounts of liability. I don't know why you would do that, but
What was done to leave the safety concerns, Chris?
So this was just a suggestion, how it came up that potentially the most secure portion to place somebody in would be where currently HR is residing. Because it has its own parking lot, it has its own entrance point, and it can be sealed off from the rest of the building. So that was the starting point to it. The secondary point is I talked to Kim and we had a conversation about vehicles and vehicle usage. So if they know they have a meeting, take the vehicle with you, pay the $30 that we get charged, per month of taxable income for having a county vehicle, if it's the same people traveling, and then they're not coming back and forth to the parking lot. So then you wouldn't have a county employee coming back at 8 o'clock at night or leaving well before the sun's up in the morning. They would have an assigned county vehicle as other departments utilize.
yeah, at a minimum, Chris, I mean, if everything else checked out, the security stuff and
Sure.
insurance and everything else, for $18,000 a year, I think we just have to be sure we're not going to spend $18,000 trying to accommodate
Absolutely.
and it sounds like there's some costs wrapped up here somewhere
Our,
that we don't know yet.
Hours of service, does anybody have any idea what they typically work? Do you know, Jared?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but just real quick, before you do a lot of security upgrades to different places, I mean, I know people are kind of set in this building, but I would move all county, employees out to there and then have this building be a state leased building or something where you're separating the two. If it's something where if you move the offices, because there's obviously Emily, Jeff, you two, if you moved people there. I'm
What
not
about,
sure
what about
people's
Chris's,
offices.
what about Chris's safety?
That's what Chris said. Chris said he's good with it or whatever, but that's just something as you.
You
think
see my
through these
point? You see my point,
Yeah.
Jason?
I think
Yeah.
I think you guys just need to decide, if you're gonna do it, my suggestion as the sheriff is put the state offices in one building together, put the county offices in another building
I think that's
together.
certainly worth looking at.
Yeah,
In the future.
Yeah, I think that may just kind of help alleviate some of the problems. Then you're not doing security upgrades,
Yeah,
multiple different places. You're getting everybody together in one spot. Just a thought.
All right. Well, it sounds like there's more work to do on this. Jared?
I just want to fill in just one last piece. I was contacted originally by Darren Hutchinson, who is the Director of Probation and Parole in Marion County, asking about this. There are, my understanding, and without talking to him, is this would be a space for the 2 probation officers who are active in our county to meet with people who are on probation. In other words, sign up for probation. When somebody gets sentenced at court, they have 2 days to come over and sign up for probation, and then they would have regular scheduled meetings with probationers. The other question I was asked is what the hours are. My understanding is it's an 8 to 4:30 business generally. I know there have been situations, sometimes things run late. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to comment on how often they are in that office or meeting with people beyond normal business hours, because what we see from the courthouse is we send them over during just normal business hours.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Board, anything else on this? Sounds like there's some work to do.
Yeah, I think that, Jared, there's some few things that, we need to look over on the lease. And between Chris and Jared, is there communication? I know, Chris, with Barbara from the state. Also, Lisa, if you would send over the information in regarding the insurance, so that can be reviewed, and CC Jared and Chris and myself in if you'd like. And, yeah, I also think that, when we are looking at this, we do have a larger space in public health, and we'll have to see what we can, figure out and whether some of these changes can be made, and then we can review at the next meeting is what I'd like to see.
Steve?
Sounds good to me. I think if, any time that we can offset some of our costs, we need to seriously consider that. But we also need to consider the ramifications on what it may entail.
Yeah. All right. Is there a motion to close discussion?
Make motion to close discussion.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey.
Aye. Right. Next, a special event application, the Living Windows presentation. Is there anybody doing that?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody's here.
Chris,
Um,
is that you,
it kind of, I think it got routed through Chris a little bit.
All right, so board, the reason this is coming before you again is, they had reached out to me. They wanted to change things and actually start earlier in the courthouse. In the past, we've usually just allowed that to take place, but in the past, it's also caused some confusion with staffing and things that staff had going on in the courthouse. So this is legitimately brought back to your attention for your approval. So the courthouse staff would then be aware and be able to voice concerns about them coming in now during business hours and setting up on the first floor. That's why this is brought back up.
Okay,
Yeah, from 4 to 8, it says, yep,
right.
versus before, I believe it was.
I personally have no
5:30.
issues with it. This was, as Jake and I talked via email, this is so the staff at the courthouse.
So this is to
This is
give
fully
everybody a heads up. that
Everybody a
these are the
heads up, and if
hours.
they have a concern with it,
Get
they
to the
can bring it up.
board, get to you, bring it back to the board for approval or not.
yes.
Anything else? Seems pretty straightforward.
I see no
Okay,
problem with
so
it.
county staff in the courthouse, if you have concerns with the extended hours, talk to Chris, talk to the board. Next meeting, Jake, we'll put it on the agenda for,
I think
So
it's-
I think the event, they had asked this quite earlier. I think the event is the 21st. So
are there objections
I
from
don't-
county staff? Let's do it that way.
I'll try and send out a reminder that morning too, that they're coming. So
Board, do you have objections?
I do not.
I do not.
County staff who are here that work in the courthouse? I don't think, do we have anybody?
I think they're online.
Jake, you can speak for everybody. Oh,
No, go, I'm
all right,
right down here.
Hale, all right,
You asked if.
go ahead.
No, you asked if people are working for us. I'm right here.
Oh, do you have objections?
No.
Okay, all right, then I don't care. All right. All right, board, what do you want to do? Do you want to make a motion to approve?
Yep, make motion to approve
Very
the
good.
revised
We'll do
special
that.
event.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
All right. And if there's anything ex post facto, Chris, tell them, too bad, so sad. They had their shot. All right. EMS Advisory Council is next. Who's got, oh, it's from Jared. So Jared, you're up.
Thank you. Most reflexively said, thank you, Your Honor. Several board meetings ago, this board passed a resolution for EMS to be deemed an essential service. And as part of the procedures of 422D, an EMS Advisory Council is then to be created. And the code is not very specific on how to go about that, but just simply says that the efforts should be coordinated with local EMS services to establish an EMS Advisory Council to assist in researching and assessing the service needs of the county. And ultimately, it will be that group that brings back a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for an amount to be placed on the ballot. This board asked me to notify local EMS of the board's decision, and I believe with the directive that they wanted representation from all EMS groups. I believe that was the vote that was taken. Given that information, I compiled a list of who I thought to be local Marion County EMS, and I drafted a letter informing everyone of the board's decision and that an EMS council should be created. I received responses from many groups, and in discussions with other EMS members, I was provided this list that is attached to my agenda request. My request today was not to have this presented to the board for an up-down vote on whether this is the committee or not. In fact, the code does not require that this board approve a committee. It can, if that's what it wants to do. However, this group can just exist. My intention today was to present this to the board in a public meeting so everyone knew what the list was that it presented to me. I want to be clear that I don't have a role in deciding who is on this or not on this, who's a voting member, who's not. My intention was to just present this so there could be discussion about whether people generally, EMS generally wants this to be the list or not. And then if this board wanted to decide if they wanted to vote on what the list exactly was. And obviously that wouldn't be for today. So that was my intention. I'm just simply reporting back to the board of what I have received. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, very good, Jared. Thank you. Board, questions for Jared?
Well, yeah, my initial request when we had this was that there be equal representation among all entities that provide EMS services. And it appears that there is pretty equal representation. I don't know that have we received any, I don't know, has this been made public to the EMS providers then? They all know that this list exists?
No, that was my intention of what I wanted to do
Okay,
today, is
okay.
by presenting this, I was hoping to make it public to the
Okay.
entire county, so people knew exactly what was going on. I'm not sure what discussions all took place to create that list. I wasn't a part necessarily of that. I was just simply provided this list back, and
Well,
my-
it appears that there's, to me, there's equal representation, and that's what I was wanting in the beginning. So that everybody that provided those services were represented, so they had a say in how this was going to be put together and presented to the public. My only concerns is that my name is on here as a voting member. And I have some concerns about that. I feel that that's kind of a conflict of interest for when it comes back to the board. My preference would be that I would not be a voting member. I don't have any problems with, providing input, but I think it's a kind of a conflict. That's my personal opinion.
Keisha?
I have a couple questions. Jared, so you referenced, making this official or not. Can you tell us the difference between, if we were to do this in a resolution or not doing it in a resolution?
Well, I guess the only thing I can say is that the group can't exist outside this board approving who is and who's not on it. I mean, we don't need to have a resolution. However, if we feel like for clarity's sake, the board wants to vote on, who's on it and who's not, that is a possibility.
So does this presentation, Jared, let's say the board takes no action, just says, hey, thanks, got the list. What's the next step for this group? If the board doesn't take any official action, but just recognizes the list as presented, what's the next step?
The code says that the group shall meet in a council format, and there's no length of time. There aren't any time limits on this. It just it will dictate when and if this goes on the ballot. But the council will meet, and then at some point, when ready, we'll bring back a recommendation to this board for the board to consider about what the percentage of tax will be on the ballot.
So this group could start meeting to get that recommendation put together right after today.
Unless this board decides that another hearing,
Needs to be done or something.
yeah, unless something else needs to be done, or this board wants to decide, hey, we want a resolution on the
Sure.
composition.
Sure. So I guess, board, from it's either kind of look over the list, take some time, have some discussions. Is this the right list? Do you want to make it more formal in a resolution format? If Steve wants off as a voting member, is there any concern about having no county official really as a voting member? And should there be one? So you got some questions to address as to what you want the next steps to be.
If I might say one more thing, it would be, if my opinion is being asked, and I'm not sure it is, but I do believe that it would probably be best practice for, to allow this information to get out there, and then perhaps at the next meeting, readdress it, just to ensure that all groups have been considered. And, this isn't coming as a surprise to some group that I failed to notify or something like that. I believe it's a comprehensive list. However, I do think, given what we're doing here, it's important for, in a public setting to say, here, this list is out there, and that no one is taken by surprise about what's going on.
I agree.
Appreciate that, Jared. Thank
Yeah,
you. Board, any
Yeah.
disagreement with what Jared's saying?
No, I don't, I appreciate your comments on that, Jared. I do have, and this is something that I will seek out the answer to, because I don't know if anybody has the answer right now. But currently we have some that are outside the county on this list. And it looks like to me that they would be having a voting right. So I need to make sure that, we as a board understand, if we were to do a resolution, that they would be voting possibly on something, and we want that. But I also need to have a better understanding of why we have outside people.
Mhm.
on it as a vote.
All right. Steve?
Well, I think those outside sources provide EMS services on the outlying areas. But I understand, I think what you're saying is, you know, they're a voting member, but yet they're not gonna be paying taxes.
Right. So do they need to be considered a non-voting member, but definitely included in the group? So,
Sounds like we got some work to do, so Jared, thank you, and thank you for the recommendation. There's a motion to close discussion. Jake, put this on the next meeting.
Thank you.
make motion to close discussion.
Second,
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
aye.
Very good. Resolution 2024-87. This is a agreement for County Line Road pavement rehabilitation project. Tyler?
Yeah, so this was brought before you 2 weeks ago, bringing it back for further discussion. The agreement itself hasn't changed, however, it's sent to the county attorney for review. They reviewed or responded to me with their review with no comments. On 11.7, the road in question is a county line road, 50/50 jurisdiction, with the exception of the first 500 feet west of Highway 14 is 100% City of Monroe responsibility. 350 vehicles a day, direct access to only one Marion County home. However, it does serve as the primary access to roughly 10 residences and roughly 1,700 acres of agricultural ground in Marion County. The current balance for lost, which was the proposal 2 weeks ago to fund the project, is 2.8 million. And some of the questions that were brought forward at that time were in regards to local option sales tax revenue and kind of the projections. So last year, FY 24, Marion County received 12% greater, 112% of the budgeted revenue. So, you know, Jake and I's Jake's conservative estimate is the same for FY 25 as it was for FY 24. That's correct, right, Jake? So, at this time, year to date, we are 33% of the way through the fiscal year, and to date have received 40.2% of the projected revenue. So we're tracking on that same trend as we did in FY 24. So, for this first agenda item, my ask is, or my recommendation is you approve the 28E. The City of Monroe has already approved the 28E. The county attorney's office has reviewed the 28E agreement. With approval of the agreement, then our office can move forward with doing survey and design work for the project
Okay.
this winter for a anticipated mid to late spring bid letting.
Okay, does that, Tyler, lock us into 2024-88? The next agenda item, the lost allocation?
The approval of the 2080 does not approve which funding source. But
Okay.
yes, I think you probably should have discussions and maybe in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because they
Yeah.
kind of go
Yeah,
hand in glove,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Right.
The second agenda item is the formal approval of the recommendation I'm making.
So if we didn't,
For
so let's
lost.
say we didn't approve item 2, the lost funding, what happens to this piece?
We would have to seek alternative funding through the secondary road fund or the general fund or.
Right.
Something other than.
So I want to make
Yeah.
sure we're clear on
Yeah.
that these two really go together and there are financial implications either way.
If you approve the 2080, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Board questions for Tyler?
Tyler, can you tell me when the last time this road was done? Do you have any idea?
It was 2004, I believe.
20 years? Okay.
The county wrote that down somewhere. So there was, it was 2004, and then in 5, there was some work done at the intersection of Highway 14 with both sides of Highway 14, east and west. That was the 500-foot west of Highway 14 I was describing as 100% City of Monroe,
Also.
which is in much better condition than the portion that we're talking about. The half a mile west is in very poor condition.
I also know that, you're recommending this but, would you have this 250,000 in your budget?
Possibly, not
Would
without,
your budget suffer?
yeah, I mean, our construction budget right now is, I mean, we would delay a seal coat project, which is already a year overdue.
I knew that you had stated before that your budget was, especially your construction budget had
Yeah,
already
our
been-
construction budget has been reduced the last 2 fiscal years. I anticipate the same. And we're already a year overdue on seal coating at the tune of probably $350,000 per year that we delayed because of budget constraints.
Right. Steve, any thoughts?
No, I know we've looked at this a long time. And you feel it's a worthwhile project?
I do. We have done, as far as the work that we would perform under this agreement, we have done ourselves in Marion County as a very sustainable, long-term solution versus what's been done in the past here, which was basically overlaying a seal coat. We know what what that does. 20 years later, the road's basically junk and needs completely redone. This is gonna have 30, 40-year life with really minor work. We've got a couple of these. What is being proposed, we have a few, and they're about 10 years old now and in very, very good shape. Just some minor crack sealing.
Anything else, board?
I see no problem with this.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-87.
A second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Abstain. Tyler, next one.
Yeah, so this is a resolution to approve the allocation of lost funding for the project we discussed. So $250,000 would be the maximum per the agreement without any amendments to the agreement for the project for Marion County share. As stated, we're tracking 6.9% over the budgeted revenue for the current fiscal year. This project is slated for FY '26, so the upcoming fiscal year. So that's what this would be approving, is allocating of funds in FY '26 lost funding, Fund 29 funding. And just so you have some knowledge of the balance, I updated the balance that I had given you in the previous board meeting only to reflect the actual revenue and expenditures year-to-date in the current fiscal year. So that I didn't have that in there 2 weeks ago. So that would be funding of Junction 92 and then the revenue received to date, which again is tracking 6.9% over. So the anticipated balance at the end of FY '25, so in June, we would have 350,000 plus the additional revenue of 800,000 that's likely to be budgeted for FY '26. And you will see another project, secondary road project that I have in what is my 5-year projection for lost. I don't know that we would do that. This project would take priority over that one for sure.
Very good. Board, you want to commit future sales tax revenue to this project?
I make the motion to approve resolution 2024-88.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Abstain.
Johnner,
Aye.
All right, now, 15th Avenue Road Classification Petition. Sounds like a Bruce Springsteen song. All right. Next. We got that?
Yeah,
too?
that's
All
me
right,
too.
all right.
So the petition.
Go ahead, Bruce.
So the petition was filed and given to you by the attorney for the estate of Shirley Horn. I sent you the letter and the petition making that request, I believe towards the end of October. And so I'll just kick this off by saying there's a very large discussion to be had around this road and the things that have transpired over the last 10 years. The issue at hand today is the petition of road reclassification. There was a formal request to upgrade the road from what is called a legal not open to level B is the layman term, but area service level B. So which is basically our dirt road that we have in Marion County, not gated dirt road. So the request is to upgrade from legal not open, which means no vehicular or pedestrian traffic. It is county right of way, but it is not maintained in any way, shape or form, and may not even be traversable or accessible with vehicular pedestrian access, which is basically the case in this particular situation. Brian's been out there more recently. I haven't been out there in 10 years, and it looked about the same or worse. So the request was for reclassification. I do have some slides here to go through. I'll go through those fairly quickly. We can revisit whatever you want, but this just tells the story of this particular road and why I am opposed to the reclassification. So the first one here is our earliest known record of it being illegal not open. That's not to say that the road wasn't illegal not open prior to 2002, but this is our first record. So this is a list of road classifications we receive and work through with the Iowa DOT. So when Brian brings us a road vacation, it gets removed from this list, or if we do change classification, it gets changed on this list. So you can note that you can see legal not open is classified there in 2002. This is a representation of the property at that time in 2002. So there already been a couple previous vacations. The green and pink. So the pink would basically be the width of the railroad right of way. And then the green was even an earlier vacation. So the green one was in 1982 and then 1992 for the railroad right of way area. So two subsequent or earlier vacations, the blue being the legal not open segment of 15th. Then in 2013, there's a parcel off of Jessup that was sold from the Horn estate or Shirley Horn's property at the time. And then you can go ahead and Emily. Then also in 2013-14 timeframe, this survey came across our desk via the zoning office, which is really what started the conversation. This survey was to potentially sell off one or two more parcels, go back one slide, of what was shaded in pink in 2013. So go ahead, Emily, forward. So this survey came across our desk, at which point I made a recommendation to the inquiring surveyor and landowners at the time that my recommendation would be to seek alternative access at that time, because 15th Place was a legal not open. There physically was no access, nor was there legal access via 15th right of way. And there were discussions about them losing their access via their own parcels if they sold some of them off to Jessup. So go ahead. So this email that I provided in your packet is documentation of the conversation I had with them, but this is between Missy and I. So then you can see some of the access that they had to the west was sold to Jessup, or the access to Jessup. So the contiguous parcels to Jessup were sold, and the only access to right of way they had, again, legal not open right of way, was to 15th. So the pink at this time in 2015 was part of the state. And go back one, Emily. You can see that there was also an easement added at that time, again, against our recommendation. This easement, as we told them, would not provide them any physical access to any of the parcels because the road is not legal to traverse. Go ahead. So this is the documentation of that 30-foot easement. Keep going. And basically this is the parcel highlighted in orange, correct, Brian? Was then sold off or split again and sold, at which point zoning suggested they get an access easement at that time as well. So that's where the 20-foot easement shown in green came into play, providing access again to only the parcel in orange. Go ahead. So that, this is documentation of that particular easement and a plat of survey. And some, and some photos showing, just scroll through there. This is what the right of way looks like as of what, a few weeks ago, Brian? No, this is 15th Avenue. The right of way. So many of the large trees you see are in the right of way, very high back slopes. Essentially, the road itself in many places is acting as the ditch. It would be extensive grading to upgrade. We'd probably have a week of just clearing and grubbing to remove trees and brush. Then we would have to do a regrade. We actually, you know, we haven't surveyed or anything like that, so there would be time surveying to address the right of way where it actually lays. And then also any drainage issues that we would have to address are still unknown. But regardless, my suggestion would be to deny the reclassification that is being proposed. So Emily, could you go back to the last plat? Or the last drawing of ours? Keep going. Right there. So this is basically where we're at today, correct, Brian? Yeah. So Brian put these together for us and he's been actively involved in this project. So the reason that the reclassification petition has come forward, because you can see that the estate parcels in pink currently have no access to public right of way other than 15th, but is not traversable, nor is it open to vehicular or pedestrian access via its classification. So their request was to petition to upgrade 15th, so the 30-foot easement that they put into place could then be utilized. Our recommendation was for them in 2014 or 15 or 13, whenever I sent that email and had those discussions, was seek alternative access, because I would not recommend to the board at that time to upgrade 15th. And furthermore, my recommendation would ultimately be to vacate that right of way. We really don't need legal not opens, especially in the, it's kind of a gray area. They don't really serve a purpose in most situations, with a few exceptions of some subdivisions that we have where legal not open may make sense. So that was my recommendation then. That's my recommendation now. My recommendation would be to deny the reclassification at this time, and then I would throw a caveat in there that we should consider vacating in the future as well. So that wasn't as quick as I thought, but that is the background here of what is kind of a complicated issue.
Sure.
My frustration with the whole thing is we gave a recommendation, and throughout years there was parceling, all at which point they owned the property originally and could have given themselves an easement to the parcels represented in pink here to have access in perpetuity, which they did not.
Yeah, it's not complicated. I was part of that process back in
Yeah,
2014,
Yeah.
and that was what we suggested that they do, that they retain an easement before they sold that property, which they decided not to do for some reason, which they should have done.
And I do believe we have Mike Curry online, who is the attorney who submitted the petition, if you have questions for them or if they would like to speak.
Yeah, this is, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, as Tyler said, my name is Mike Curry. I'm the attorney that prepared and submitted the petition, and I'm here to answer any questions. I was not involved with these discussions back in 2014 or subsequent years, but this is sort of the current status of how things are, obviously. And yeah, I mean, I think the petition is fairly straightforward, and so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
I have a question. Mike, how are they accessing the land now?
They aren't really. As far as I know, I believe all of the farmland has been put into CRP, and so there's no, and I believe that is correct. I have not personally been to the property to to see it. So, but as far as I know, nobody's accessing it currently.
Are they seeking to sell that parcel off now south of the tracks?
Yes, and I mean, that's really what this boils down to. The marketability of these parcels is significantly impacted by the inability of any owner to legally access them. And in
Which they should have put an easement in place before they sold off the north side.
well, I frankly don't know. I don't know that you can obtain an easement from yourself. Normally easements that come from differing property owners. It could have been part of, of course, part of a sale, that the buyer, conditionally provides such an easement, but I'm not actually sure if you can give yourself an easement.
I only say that, sir, because I'm familiar with the issue.
We've seen that in the past, where they're basically simultaneous at the time of the transaction, where an easement's obtained or secured.
Right.
That's what happened in 2020 when they surveyed off the parcel in Oregon, created the easement.
Yeah, you take care of that, take care of it at time of sale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Board, what's your thoughts? Sounds like Steve has already got.
Well, my thoughts are to deny the request for reclassification.
Okay, Keisha.
Yeah.
And I would, if I may, I think anticipating that this is, sort of the likely result. I think the county taking the extra step of abandoning the property, because what we're left with now is, if the petition is denied, but the county still owns the property, we're sort of left in this pickle where we have an easement to the road. It's not, you can walk down it, you might be able to take a four-wheeler down it or something like that. But for us to take the next step of filing a petition to obtain an easement by necessity, I think we're in a much better position if the county no longer owns it. So I think if the county could take the extra step to officially move or and abandon Fifth Avenue, I'm not sure what the process is, if that can be done based on this petition, or if there needs to be more process.
That's what they're talking about here, so go
Yeah, I
ahead,
think-
Tyler.
Yeah.
I think what Mike is saying is that vacating.
Yeah.
The county then vacating any rights or interest, it going back to private property would be the next best step if we're not going to approve reclassification. Just so you're aware, and I was gonna bring this up before any action was taken, there are sections of Iowa code in relation to claims for damages if a road is vacated. However, my understanding is that the adjacent property owners have to be adjacent to the road that's being vacated. So the gray area in this particular case would be, does the easement that's there make them adjacent? Regardless, they still have the right to acquire an easement or condemn that way via access, which may not be to 15th Avenue as shown in blue here. It could possibly be
On the south.
because that would be 400 feet versus
So
half a
but what
mile.
we're saying though is if we deny the petition, so make sure, keep it simple here for everybody listening. Deny the petition, there are still legal rights that the property owner has if we then vacate the road. Extra steps they have to go through that could secure their rights to sell the property and get some dollars out of it.
Correct.
Is there a motion, Steve?
Yeah, I make a motion that we deny the request to reclassify.
I'll second.
I think you're muted. Oh, okay, never mind.
McCombs?
Aye.
Very good.
That's
Tyler,
all for me today.
Thank you. All right, we have brought forward from another meeting, we have an extension of Prairie Ridge Urban Renewal Agreement. We got a new one here.
So what we have before us, board, is, if you remember last, meeting, I had asked that, when Mr. Nardini was here, that we reach out and find out if there is the possibility that the LMI dollars that will come from the extension of the TIF, that we could possibly, seeing if there's any opportunity legally wise, that, we could have some oversight on those. Jared, I just wanted to make sure that, Jared and I did call, Nathan with Allers and Cooning, and, Nathan was very kind to take our call. And, Jared, would you mind, or do you want to state what you had heard and then?
Yes, so we spoke with Nathan and discussed this matter, and my takeaway from that discussion was that there may not be a provision in the code that sets forth an operation of how these LMI dollars are spent, but it could be that there could be a contractual agreement of, going forward as to how those funds may be spent in conjunction with the county and the city.
Okay, so it basically privately contracting between two government entities.
Correct.
Okay.
And I also would like to make sure that the board is aware, I did ask Nathan, there is no time limit when it comes to spending these LMI dollars. So they could sit out there for a very long time and continue to accumulate. I do think that when the cities come and ask us for an extension, that I think it is something that we're giving and saying here, we're willing to give 5 extra years, that I think it would be nice from our standpoint that we did have some sort of agreement that once those dollars were starting to accumulate, that we at least visit about it and discuss what's in there and whether we could, how it's being spent, and at least on a yearly basis.
Mike, anything you want to add to that? Because we got the extension agreement here. I mean, it's more than just LMI we're dealing with. We're dealing with the whole Prairie Ridge extension. So from what Keisha is saying, there's no legal provision. We can contract privately. As a city of Pella willing to do that as a condition for our approval of this.
As a condition, we'll also, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as the LMI dollars, just so we're talking about where they could be spent at. I believe the code also says that they have to be spent in the city of Pella's area of operations, which means the city limits or the 2-mile area surrounding is how it's been interpreted.
Correct.
So,
There are limitations on where those dollars can be spent.
mhm.
Are
Now,
you willing to pursue that? Because that's not currently in here, right?
Yeah, that is correct. That'd be an item that the Pella City Council would have to address. So we'd have to go back to the Pella City Council with a proposal from the board on it as well. But would also be mindful with the developer and the housing needs in Pella, just to remind the board, as well as we consider this item, that housing is needed in the city of Pella. The recent Marion County assessment identified 1,300 additional homes that would need to be built in Pella to meet housing demands through the year 2035. Our buildable lots in the community are extremely low right now. Our inventory as far as buildable lots from new subdivisions should be in the neighborhood of 150 to 250 buildable lots. We're currently less than 29, and we're approaching very quickly of having all buildable lots within our community.
Yeah,
Not being exist. So time is
Yes.
we are sensitive to this matter, but it would be something I would be happy to present back to the city council as far as a contract and the board's interest from the supervisors, if that's what you're.
Yeah, if you're willing to do that, and we could, turnaround time, I don't know if you could do it at your next meeting and then we just, vote. If it's in this agreement, then we could vote on it. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it may be a little bit more complicated than that because the school district also approved the agreement. So it's a 3-party agreement. And once again, that would be something too with the caveat, we'd have to check if there's going to be a delay in the agreement because the development agreement that we approved for the housing was subject to a 5-year extension. And so.
Right. So I want to make sure everybody understands the real crux of the issue here, and that is that Marion County would have some authority to distribute LMI dollars within the city of Pella. That's essentially what we're discussing here. Because
With a 2-mile limit.
You wouldn't be able to do it outside of those 2 miles.
No, we don't believe it's outside of the
Correct. Yep, no,
two
that's
miles.
true. Yep.
So you'd have a immediate restriction. So if we're waiting until that, then it sounds like we can close discussion and work out some language.
That's what I'd prefer to do.
Steve?
So-
Sounds good to me.
All right. Is there a motion to close discussion?
Motion to close discussion.
Second?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye. Updates, Steve?
Uh, Well, we have a canvas tomorrow. We have a landfill meeting Thursday.
Okay.
And
Keisha?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Motion, we close open session, go into closed session.
Can do that too.
Second?
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Number 12, reconvene regular session.
All right. Is there a motion to reconvene?
Motion, we reconvene.
Second?
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye. Board met in closed session, had a good discussion. No actions were taken. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion, we adjourn.
Second?
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.